Greetings, I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I'm going to build the Plastic Soldier Company German PaK 40 anti-tank gun and Raupenschlepper tractor. This is a plastic kit in 15mm scale. The back of the box has a couple of illustrations showing the tractor towing a gun, and a list of the box contents. There are 4 PaK 40 anti-tank guns, 4 Raupenschlepper tractors, and 32 crew figures. There's also a painting guide that suggests using Vallejo colours. Inside the box you will find 4 of these sprues. Each sprue can be used to make a gun and Raupenschlepper, or the self-propelled PaK 40 version. If you want to use magnets, you can have both the Schlepper and SPG. The parts on these sprues look pretty much the way I would expect Plastic Soldier Company's sprues to look. They're very neatly moulded, free from apparent defects or errors, and quite nicely detailed. There's quite a few different optional parts. There's 2 cabs for the tractor, a variety of gun options, and a few ammo boxes and individual rounds for stowage and detailing parts. Pretty nice though, as always. I would love more additional stowage. The crew figures that come with this kit look pretty decent. About the same as any other crew figures I've seen on a Plastic Soldier Company kit. Some of them are in a prone position, and I think they would work well with the standalone gun. The rest are kneeling, so they could be used either on the regular PaK 40 or on the vehicle-mounted version. They look pretty decent. I'll leave them on the sprue for this build because I don't want to lose them. I'm going to use them on the self-propelled PaK 40, but gluing them on before painting would make painting more difficult. The instructions are okay, but not great. They don't even mention or hint at the ability to build the PaK 40 on its own. Only the 2 versions of the tractor and the self-propelled gun appear in the instructions. That's a bit annoying. I do intend to build a separate gun in addition to the self-propelled version. It does look like there will be enough parts. I think I will just have to guess at putting that together. I'm going to start this kit by building the chassis subassembly. This is easy enough. It doesn't seem to matter which way the tracks go on. They look to be identical. If there is a difference, it's too subtle for me to see. I glue the tracks onto the bottom of the hull, which is quite simple. I needed to apply a tiny bit of pressure to get the parts together, but nothing too hard. The part does flex a little bit, so maybe be careful with that. You probably won't break anything, but it's good to be careful. Once I have the tracks joined to the hull bottom, I experiment with some rare earth magnets to figure out how I can magnetize this kit. I can't remember the exact thickness of these magnets, but they're 2mm or less. It looks like the best place for them is in the cab area. Only one magnet will fit between the very bottom of the hull and the truck bed parts for either variant of the vehicle. Once I figured that out, I glued the magnets into place. Because magnets are metal, obviously I use superglue for this. I then figured the cab on the Raupenschlepper has a solid floor, so I will have to glue the magnet to that part rather than the truck bed, so I do that. The magnet that's already installed in the base of the model will ensure this one has correct polarity. The trick will be making sure the magnets in each track set and vehicle top have consistent polarity so they will all work together. The cab of the self-propelled gun version has an opening in the bottom, so the magnet for this part can go directly onto the truck bed. There's plenty of room in there for a magnet. I glue one in place. Again, the magnet in the base of the model will help in getting the correct polarity. I test fit to make sure there is enough clearance between the magnet and the guide tab for the cab, and it goes together fine. This was very easy to do, and now I am effectively getting 2 vehicles from the kit rather than 1. I'm going to assemble the tractor first, so I start that by gluing on the cab rear wall and floor part, the part that I previously glued the magnet to. The part fits into the slot intended for it very easily. Next comes the cab front and roof. These parts are keyed to ensure good placement. I apply some pressure to try and minimize the gap on the roof. I don't think the gap is meant to be there. The part is molded such that it looks like there's meant to be a slightly raised panel on the roof, and it partially hides the gap. I then glue the cab doors in. There are guides inside the cab to prevent the door from falling inside, which makes putting them on rather easy. The gap around this part is acceptable as the real vehicle has a gap there too. After all, the door is a separate part that opens, in case you don't know what the function of a door is. Now, the sides of the truck bed need to be installed. I think this is meant to go on before the cab. It was a little bit fiddly to get the forward part in, but it did eventually go into place. The sides come next, obviously, and they're not at all difficult to place. I was a little bit messy with the glue here, but it's not so bad. I used the flat edge of my knife to press the forward part properly onto the side panel. Then the rear. Simple stuff. There's a little bit of a gap there, but I figure this is the part that opens the most frequently, and it might make sense for there to be some gaps and misalignment there through heavy use. Next, we need a cover to protect all the Raupens we'll be schlepping from the harsh sun. This comes as two parts that are very easily glued together like so. There are some guide parts to help the two halves line up. It's not a bad fit, but there is a bit of a gap where the parts join. This will need to be filled before painting. This assembly can then be glued into place on the top sides of the truck bed. This is quite easy and it looks pretty good. These parts are moulded in such a way that when they are painted, they should look convincingly like whatever fabric this cover was made from. Canvas, I guess. It is of course an optional part, but I thought the vehicle would look more interesting with the cover on. The final part is this exhaust. There is unfortunately only one of these, so the SPG will have to do without. It should be less obvious on that model though, because the sides of the truck bed will be folded down. This thing looks cool and it is now ready to go and schlepp all of the Raupens. Let's move on to that SPG now. I glue the cab to the frame. This is very easy. There's slots and a guide tab that go together to ensure a perfect fit. I did of course test fit earlier to ensure the parts would fit together nicely with the magnet. It's important to test fit. That's about all we have to do with the main body of the SPG. Now to build the gun. You can see that I have drilled out the end of the gun barrel. It's not quite perfect, but it does look a lot better than a flat barrel end. The gun itself looks decent. There wasn't much in the way of mold lines and the detailing is fair. I glued the gun controls part into the appropriate slot on the left side of the gun here like so. This makes the gun look a lot better than if they had just cast the handles into the side of the gun. Next comes the gun shield. I add glue and then slot the gun through the hole in the shield. There are angled pieces of plastic on the shield part that help you get correct placement of this part, and it should end up looking something like this. Then the gun can be glued into its mounting thing. There is keying, so the gun will only go into the mount one way. You might find that the pin on the bottom of the gun is too long, and the part won't sit inside the mount properly. I simply trim the pin down to a more suitable length. Very easy. Then the gun on its mount can simply be slotted into place in the truck bed. There's no keying here, so you can face the gun in any direction you like. Mine is obviously facing forward. Make sure the gun isn't leaning at a weird angle or anything like that. Now might be an okay time to glue the crew figures onto this vehicle, but doing that would make it a bit more challenging to paint. So I think it's better to leave the crew on the sprue for now so they don't get lost before I paint the model. You can see under here that it's much easier to hide the lack of exhaust than it would be on the tractor model. I'm pretty happy with this. It's a simple little model, but I think it looks really cool. Now to fumble my way through building the standalone gun. Here's the gun I'm going to be using. It's not a PaK 40 because there was only one of those on the sprue. I think it might be a PaK 38. It might be a little hard to see on camera, but this has a slight miscasting at the end of the barrel. The right side of the muzzle brake is a little bit flat. Not really a huge deal. Also, I didn't drill out this gun barrel because of how small the gun is. I glue the left side of the gun on. There's some keying here to ensure you get the part on nice and neatly. Like with the PaK 40, this part has a control handle on it, and will also hold the gun shield on at the appropriate angle. A similar part is glued to the right side of the gun. Both of these parts are very easy to attach. I wait a while for the glue to set properly before I proceed to the next step, which is to glue the gun assembly to the frame part. I believe I have this frame part the right way up. The two rectangular protrusions on the bottom of the parts I glued to the sides of the gun slot into a pair of holes on the frame. It all goes together quite nicely. I then add the gun trails. I glued these into place here like so, with the pin part facing down, the wavy bar near the spades on the top, and the spade itself having the overhang facing outwards away from where the other trail would be. I used the picture on the back of the box as a reference for this, so it might be wrong, but it's probably correct. I then spread the gun trails until I think they're a sensible distance apart. I also tried to get them spaced evenly, though this doesn't need to be perfect. Next, I add the gun shield. This is pretty simple. Much like on the PaK 40, it attaches to the two angled parts on the front of the gun. Make sure it sits fairly straight and neatly. It looks good and shieldy. I then glue on the wheels. This was pretty easy. I chose to use the solid wheels because I thought they looked cooler than the option with the space between the spokes. Of course, make sure you get these on as straight as you can. The final detail is this plate that goes on the front of the gun. There are two options for this, but I think this is the appropriate part for this gun. It goes into place fairly easily. There are guides on the back of the plate into which the frame should slot. And there we have it. That's one gun finished with no instructions. I think it looks reasonable. It probably won't win any awards, but it's definitely good enough for tabletop wargaming. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with how this kit has gone together. I'm especially happy that I could get both the tractor and the self-propelled PaK 40 for the low price of just a couple of magnets. Of course, they can't be fielded at the same time, but that's fine by me. It's also very good that you can build a gun in addition to the self-propelled PaK 40. I'm sure that if you wanted to, you could mount one of the other guns to the SPG instead of the PaK 40. Not sure that's historically accurate, but it might be. This kit was very quick and easy to build. All of the parts were there and they were rather neatly moulded. The mould lines were minor and very easy to clean up. The resulting models are pretty much what I would expect from the Plastic Soldier Company. They're quite nice looking and fairly well detailed. I rather like them. The only really disappointing thing about this kit was the instructions. For the tractors and SPG they are fine, but there's no help if you want to build the gun. It was easy enough for me to guess at how it goes together, but I can see it being an issue for some people, especially very new modelers. This is definitely an oversight by the Plastic Soldier Company that I hope is very rare indeed. Besides that, I'm still glad that I bought this kit and would recommend it to anybody that wants a nice Raupenschlepper. I have to admit the main reason I bought this kit was for the tractors, because I have some Raupens that really need to be schlepped. For me, the rest of the kit is just a cool bonus, but if you do mostly want PaK 40s, it's still a good buy, and if you want to do a little magnetizing, you can get a good bit of versatility out of this box. So, what do you think? Have you built this kit? Are you interested in it? Do you like pie? Let me know in the comments section below. Also, don't forget to do those other YouTubey things such as subscribing, liking, and sharing the video, assuming you did like it. If you really like the things I do, please consider helping to support the channel over at Patreon. Patrons get to see my videos a bit early along with some patron-only bonus content. Link in the description and on screen now. As always, I shall return soon, so until then, happy Raupenschlepping and thanks for watching. Farewell.